Hey there. Welcome to my channel. My name is Angela Manderfeld, and I'm a registered dietitian that specializes in all things diabetes. And today we're going to talk a little bit about carb confusion. The reason we're going to talk about that is the other day I was hanging out with some friends, and I overheard a friend, guess I was eavesdropping, but I overheard a friend say to someone else, like, "Yeah, I'm really cutting the carbs." She was like, "I'm only eating fruit and yogurt at breakfast," and she was going on. I was like, wow, like she's really into fitness. She's super smart. But she doesn't know which foods are carbohydrates. So it kind of prompted me to do this talk today. What I'm going to cover is what kind of carbs are best. Should you be even eating carbohydrates if you have diabetes? And we'll just dive into a little more detail about carbohydrates. So, first and foremost, let's clear up what is a carbohydrate. Number one, fruit is a carbohydrate. Anything that grows from the trees you pick from the ground, these are considered carbohydrate foods. So, any grains, beans, starchy vegetables like potatoes, peas, corn, actually, all vegetables do have some carbohydrates, but the potatoes, peas, and corn, these are the ones that have more carbohydrate content in them. We've talked about the food that grows from the ground, the food that picks from the trees. Last thing you got to think about is the dairy. It's particularly only milk and yogurt, and that's because they have a naturally occurring sugar in them called lactose. So, milk and dairy, fruit, and then things that grow from the ground, all your grains, beans, and starchy vegetables are considered carbohydrates. So, now that we know what carbohydrates are, if you've got diabetes, should you be eating them? Well, that's kind of a challenging question to answer, but I'll try to break it down. So here's the deal. As we age, there's certain things that cause our bodies to be resistant to insulin. And this doesn't matter who you are, whether you have diabetes type 1, type 2, no diabetes. Every single one of us, as we grow older, we become a little bit more insulin resistant. And part of that has to do with hormones. So, like as men age, their testosterone decreases, which in return can trigger more insulin resistance. And in women, as estrogen decreases again, and those are just two little hormones that cause insulin resistance. There's a whole slew of other things that can cause that problem as well. So, as we age, particularly as we get into our 40s and older, we really need to pay attention to which carbohydrate foods we're eating. So, to keep it short and sweet and to the point, the most important thing that you can do is if you're buying foods that have labels and you know it's a carbohydrate, you need to look at the fiber content. Don't waste your time on a piece of bread that has 1 gram of fiber. We're looking for a minimum of 3 grams of fiber per serving, trying to get close to 10 grams of fiber per meal. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, Angela, how many carbohydrates should I eat in a day? Well, I would say the quick answer is I would try not to exceed 40% of your calories from carbohydrate. You know, the old pyramid said 50 to 60%. That's not ideal. I would say at the most 40% of your calories from carbohydrate. But you know what? Everybody has different carbohydrate tolerance. So some people might be able to tolerate 40% of their calories from carbs, and other people may not. So some people will use a continuous glucose monitor to help with that, but that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day. So how many carbohydrates should you be eating? Let's say you need anywhere from 1,500 to 1,600 calories a day. Maybe you're trying to lose a few pounds and you need 1,500 a day. If you drop that last zero, so 1,500, drop the last zero is 150. 150 grams of carbohydrate happens to equate to 40% of that caloric value. So let's do another one. Let's say you need 1,800 calories a day to either lose weight or maintain a healthy weight. 40% of your calories from carbohydrate on an 1,800 calorie diet would be 180 grams of carbs a day. Okay. So it's not a hard and fast rule that you have to be at 40%, but if you're just getting started with this and you're like, "Hey, where should I be?" That's a general number. Now, some of you are like, "Whoa, that's a lot," because maybe you're used to keto or like lower carb diets where they tell you, you can't have more than 30 carbs a day. If you're just easing into this, that's a great place to start. And then that needs to be broken up because if you sit down and eat 150 carbohydrates all at one time, you're going to get a blood sugar, quite a big blood sugar rise. So think about spreading that out. And then the other piece that's really important is the quality. So when you're choosing your carbohydrates, you want to get them from the vegetables, ideally, things that grow in nature, berries that you can pick. Choosing carbohydrates that are bright in color, choosing carbohydrates that are high in fiber, that's going to be your best bet in getting better blood sugar control and improving your energy level. That's also the best way to decrease insulin resistance. So, insulin resistance is when your cells are locking up and the insulin's knocking, saying, "Hey, I got some sugar I need to drop off." But the cells are just being stubborn, saying, "No, no thanks." So what ends up happening is the sugar builds up in the blood. The pancreas is putting out tons of insulin, and if you have type 2 diabetes, and you start to have a problem because insulin is a fat storing hormone. So that's when people start to see accumulation of fat tissue starting to develop around the middle and making people uncomfortable, but also increasing their risk for disease. So, in a nutshell, what are carbohydrates? Things that grow on the trees, things that you pick from the ground, and then the other two happen to be milk and yogurt. Okay, so those are your carbohydrate foods. How much should you eat? Well, maybe you start with about 40% of your calories from carbohydrates and make sure they're high quality and you make sure that the fiber is there. The more fiber you eat, the less impact those carbohydrates are going to have on your blood sugar. So I think that's probably the best place to start. I try to give you some tidbits that I have from chapter 5 in my book. So I don't know if you've checked it out, but Outsmart Your Diabetes. It's a step-by-step guide to reversing type 2 diabetes. It's available on Amazon. I'm going to try to pop in every week, maybe a couple times a week, and give you more tips and tricks to help manage blood sugar, skyrocket energy, and keep you feeling good. Until then, have an amazing day. Thanks, guys.